Hey guys, this is Andrew Sparks with another episode of Real Think Vlog. Thank you very much again for joining me this week. Just to give you a quick overview of the Real Think Vlog, again, the point here is for me to share some insights from philosophers from all different ages and from all different places to show you how their thoughts can apply to your life. The point of philosophy is to live a good life. At least that's one definition of it. And I take that very seriously, and I'd like to share it with you so that maybe some of these insights can apply to your life and can help you to live a good life as well. So this week we're going to switch it up a little bit. The previous weeks I have gone over Seneca and his series of letters called On the Shortness of Life. This week, I am going to go over Rene Descartes, who lived in the 1600s, early 1600s, and more specifically, I'm going to go over just a kind of a short letter by him, or like a short little booklet called Discourse on Method. So this is one of my favorite books of all time. This is actually two works by Descartes put together. So this is Discourse on Method and also Meditations on First Philosophy. So today we're going to go over Discourse on Method. And this is great. It's like 100 pages long. Again, philosophy doesn't have to be locking yourself away in a room reading thousands of 1,000-page books. This is something you can read on the subway, read in the waiting room. It's not even all that dense. Just take it in little bites and you'd be amazed at some of the insights you can get from it. So let's just jump right into it. Rene Descartes was a philosopher who in a lot of ways led to the modernization of the Western world. So he, in his search for certainty, actually didn't really like philosophy all that much. So he did his philosophy in a very mathematical way, because in mathematics, there's one right answer, and if you don't get it, you didn't get it right. So he's looking for certainty, and he's looking for certain foundations that once you find, you can then go from there and know with certainty from that point on that you're going to reach a valid conclusion. So that's a lot of words, but basically he wants to be sure that he's living a good life. And the problem he was running into is he was very smart in school. He read all of his school books as well as a lot of books that weren't even part of his curriculum because he wanted to get the right answer to life. So he didn't find it in theology. He didn't even find it in philosophy. He didn't find it in any of the books he read. So he decided after he graduated, again at a very young age, to go out and see the world. So I don't know this for sure, but my professor told me several years ago when I was learning about this book and about Rene Descartes that he traveled with an army and in fact went all over Europe and met all sorts of different people from all different countries, from all walks of life. And his thesis there was books and philosophers disagree, so let me find what common sense says about life. And surprise, surprise, everyone he talked to had a different answer and a different opinion. So he realized that he needs to think for himself, and ultimately that he can gather all the information he wants. He can talk to all the different types of people that he wants. He can ask people on the street. In modern day times, maybe like a stranger on the elevator you strike up a conversation with, whatever opinions they have, whatever opinions your professor has, your parents, your church leader, whatever it might be. Everyone has their own opinions. Feel free to gather them, but ultimately decide for yourself. So that's the major takeaway here. I'm going to give you a couple of quotes just to summarize that point. And the first quote here is basically to say, be careful about what other people say, and when they think that they have it all figured out, a lot of times it's them wanting to appear smart rather than actually having the answer and actually trying to help other people by providing that answer. So this is just to provide a little bit of context here. This is where he realizes that books don't have the answer, so he's going to seek out common sense. And he said, "For it seemed to me that I could find much more truth in reasonings that each person makes concerning matters that are important to him, and whose outcome ought to cost him dearly later on if he has judged badly, than in those reasonings engaged in by a man of letters in his study, which touch on speculations and produce no effect and are of no other consequence to him, except perhaps that the more they are removed from common sense, the more pride he will take in them. For he will have to employ that much more wit and ingenuity in attempting to render them plausible." So, to translate that into easily understood English, what he's saying here is beware of people who jump through hoops and attempt to sound smart, because they might be smart, they might not be, but ultimately they are servicing their pride rather than trying to help you live a better life by providing some very clear-cut advice or ways of thinking that will better your life and can apply to your life. I think the key word there is wit. So watch out for witty people. Sometimes wit is fun, sometimes it's interesting, but ultimately if someone is all about wit, then really treat them and what they say with suspicion, because wit oftentimes covers up a whole bunch of stuff that when you dig into it, you realize that they don't have it all figured out. And just to follow up on the theme of thinking for yourself, so at the end of part 1 in Discourse on Method, Rene Descartes says, "After I had spent some years thus studying in the book of the world, and in trying to gain some experience, I resolved one day to study within myself too, and to spend all the powers of my mind in choosing the paths that I should follow. In this I had much more success, it seems to me, than had I never left my country or my books." So what he's saying there is this worked for him. Take it, leave it. He couldn't figure out the best way to live based on books or based on teachings, because they oftentimes disagree, because it's a whole bunch of people trying to sound witty. And in terms of common sense even, it's very appealing to try and find a common sense solution. But if you ask 10 different people what a common sense answer is to a problem, you'll get 10 different opinions or 10 different answers. So ultimately, gather information, but think for yourself. And that is the first lesson from Discourse on Method, Part 1, from Rene Descartes. Again, my name is Andrew Sparks, and this is a next episode of Real Think Vlog. Thank you very much for joining me. Take care.